Hey guys, it's Marco again. We finally know all the Covenant specific legendary powers for mages, and most of them are disappointing. I tested all of them on PTR, and here are my thoughts and opinions. First, I'm going to start with the newest legendary addition, Venthyr Legendary. Shifting power can be channeled while moving. Each enemy hit by shifting power grants you 1% critical strike chance and 1% haste, up to 10% for 10 seconds. You can craft this legendary on chest and hands. This is the most underwhelming legendary. For arcane mages, you can't measure this compared to Temporal Warp for solo targets and cleave, and for AoE it's still a lot worse than Arcane Bombardment or even Arcane Harmony. Fire mages are always using Disciplinary Command, and it gives you 20% critical strike damage. And 20% critical damage will be better than this legendary even if it gives you 10% haste and 10% critical, no matter how many targets there is. For Frost mages, you won't need any more critical strike chance, because everyone will have a soft critical cap already. And only having this buff for 10 seconds is bad for them, since they benefit more from consistent damage. There is no way that this can measure up to Slick Ice, Freezing Winds or Glacial Fragments. Overall, this legendary is the biggest disappointment, and I really don't know why would you ever make this one. Now let's check the other Covenant legendaries, about which have the information for a month now. Kyrian, Harmonic Echo. Damage dealt to enemies affected by Radiant Spark's vulnerability. Echo to 4 nearby enemies for 25% of the damage dealt. This legendary sounds cool, since it goes in handy with the Ire of Ascendant Conduit and with the last Soulbind ability of Markonicus, which reduces the cooldown of Radiant Spark. This legendary is the most interesting for arcane mages, since Kyrian AoE power lies in Radiant Spark, Touch of the Magi, Arcane Blast, Arcane Barrage. All of these hit the primary target way harder than off targets. This legendary is going to be useless for solo targets, and its power increases the more targets there are. I'm actually getting better numbers with this legendary than with Arcane Harmony on 5 targets. But with 4 targets, Arcane Harmony catches up, and also it depends if you're gonna have a critical strike chance or no. The difference isn't huge, so you will still be using Arcane Harmony for Mythic Plus situations. For Fire mages, this legendary is again unmeasurable compared to Disciplinary Command. Lastly, for Frost mages. Glacial Fragments will do a way better job than this one, so again, it's kinda useless for them. Overall, this legendary again won't be used unless there is a huge add AoE raid fight, but there isn't one currently. Although compared to Venthyr Legendary, you may want to make it for Kyrian Arcane mages just for fun. Necrolord. Your Fireball, Frostbolt and Arcane Blast have a chance to grant Deathborn for 8 seconds. While in the form of Skeletal Mage, the spell damage granted is increased by 1% for each enemy hit by Fireball, Frostbolt and Arcane Blast. This is the most promising new legendary power and the most OP one on the PTR. However, this probably won't be the case, since this one is kinda bugged on PTR. You should only gain 1% spell power for every target you hit, so hitting 3 different targets equates to 3% more spell power. But on PTR, each fireball, even on 1 target, will pump 1% spell power, and if you cast 100 fireballs, you gain 100 spell power. So if there is a cleave fight, you will pop Deathborn and just spam fireballs for the massive DPS boost. Clearly this isn't working as it's supposed to, because they use different wording in the tooltip and we're still waiting for a fix. But also, the power which lies in this legendary is with the chance to gain Deathborn for 8 seconds, and that also procs your lead by example from a man. If you're already in Deathborn and get a proc, it won't refresh your lead by example. But if you gain a completely new Deathborn, you'll get a new lead by example buff. I honestly think that the devs forgot that lead by example exists, so I also don't believe that this should be a thing. A proc activating another proc. So I'm waiting if this is going to be patched or it will be very strong. On average, I get this proc every 50 seconds, but it has no internal cooldown, so it's very RNG dependent. and this proc doesn't benefit from Gift of the Lich. And this is the main reason why I think that Lead by Example also shouldn't be procced. But there is just a lot of speculation about this item at the moment, so I can't say anything for sure. If the item remains in this state, we will all be Necrolords. If they only remove the spell damage stacking, this still might be a very good legendary due to Lead by Example. Basically, you sometimes may have 100% uptime of it, and that's 13% increased intellect for you and 2% increased primary stat to 4 other players in your team, which is kinda insane. And the last, most probable version is where they remove both of the things, but this legendary won't be that good. So it's either OP or not good at all. But I will definitely keep an eye on this one, and you should too. Frost mages benefit the most out of this legendary due to the fact that they cast the biggest amount of frost bolts. Arcane mages are second with arcane blasts, and lastly we got fire mages who don't cast a lot of fireballs, and in execute phase they're spamming Scorch. Overall, in my testing, I'd say that Frost procs this every 40-ish seconds, while it takes Arcane and Fire substantially longer to proc it. Venthyr, Sinful Delight. Consuming Brain Freeze, a Fire Blast charge, clear casting, reduces Mirrors of Torment cooldown by 3 seconds. If Mirrors of Torment is the spell, the cooldown is reduced by 45 seconds. For Arcane mages, this really isn't that good of a legendary, because we want that Mirrors of Torment line up with Arcane power, and they are already at a similar cooldown thanks to Arcane Prodigy. So this legendary is somewhat of a miss for Arcane mages. For Fire mages, it is also kinda useless, since after the nerf to Kindling you gain combustion every 1 minute and 20 seconds, if Venthyr, so you might as well hold combustion for a few seconds to line everything up. But even without the nerf to Kindling, this just doesn't measure up to the power of Disciplinary Command. Lastly, for Frost mages, this is a very good legendary for solo target fights. Down the line, it might actually be the best for solo targets for Frost mages. For cleave and AoE situations, the legendary isn't good, so we'll only talk about solo target situations. With current gear and Slick Eyes, we're still unable to have 100% uptime on Icy Veins, and having 60-ish seconds cooldown on Mirrors of Torment won't help us with that. Our Icy Veins will probably be on a cooldown then, so I believe that 20% reduced cast time and increased damage from Frostbolts with Slick Eyes is going to prove more beneficial, until we're able to always have 100% uptime on Icy Veins. But nonetheless, I believe that this is a legendary with a bright future for Frost mages, maybe already with 9.1 gear plus better Icy Propulsion conduit. But we'll have to wait and see. And that's pretty much for this video. I hope that it was interesting, and I love that you press that like button and subscribe for more content. Links to Twitch and Patreon are always in the description, so feel free to check them out. Thank you for watching, and until next time, take care.